Welcome to Her Fantasy Football. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio /Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. You can also hear us on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Saturday night from 8 to 10 Eastern. Make sure to subscribe to us on herfantasyfootball.com so you can get our newsletters so you can play our fun new Diced game on FanDuel. Also, you can chat with us at Her Fantasy FB and on Facebook /Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I'm Brandon Marianne Lee.
There we go. Woo! Week 5, everyone. 4 teams on bye. Get them out of your lineup. Carolina Panthers, Miami Dolphins, Minnesota Vikings, and the New York Jets. So basically, AP.
Oh, I think this is a bad bye week.
This is not a bad bye week. There's some bad bye weeks coming up.
Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall. Ivory, sure.
Chris Ivory.
Jonathan Stewart. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's just mean.
Oh, man, that's good.
Gotta get my one mean dig in at least every show.
You're good. You're
started off.
I like it. Thank you. So it's a tough kind of week for buys for tight ends, though, I will have to say. Because you got Rudolph, you got
Greg Olsen.
That's Greg Olsen, and it's just Jordan Cameron. Cameron Jordan. I don't know. It sounds right either way you say it.
Just offensive, defensive player, baby.
That's right. Awesome. Well, let's just get straight into it. Thursday night game. Indianapolis Colts 2-2 at the Houston Texans 1-3.
So Matt Hasselbeck had a pretty good game, actually, guys. I know there was
it.
A lot of hoopla over. I'm saying relatively speaking here. There's a lot of hoopla over the whole Andrew Luck thing, and he ended up not playing, which I think a lot of people thought he was actually going to play.
Yeah, I thought so.
So it's kind of that last minute, like, oh man, Hasselbeck's in. But he threw for 282 yards. He had a touchdown. It could have been better. But you know what? For short notice, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse, and it didn't hurt a lot of your fantasy players as badly as it could have, is what I will say.
That's right.
Now, Andre Johnson, I hope he's off your team by now, or you clearly have not been listening to our show. He did not have a single catch, guys. Not a single one, which is problematic. But what's interesting is that they are actually working out Ahmad Bradshaw because, the Frank Gore situation has been intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll word it that way. But, Frank Gore, he did practice in full on, which is good. He's averaging, after 4 games, 18 points per game after averaging 28.6 points in 2014. So... not great. Sorry, no, that's completely not Andrew Luck. That's Frank Gore. Oh my goodness. He did play. I think he's going to play, but they are working out another running back, so beware there. That was my Andrew Luck comment. Andrew Luck, 27th in the league in offense after 4 games. He's averaging only 18 points per game versus 28.6. That's where I was going with that. I was like, woof, that is rough. It's going to be possibly a rough outing for him this week as well. So he's apparently going to play, they think. It's been kind of up and down, day to day. One moment they're saying, oh, he's playing for sure. The next one he's limited in practice. The next day it's again he's going to play for sure. Luck is 5-1 against the Texans, but I'm not feeling great about him this week. I don't like how kind of vague they're being about him. I don't.
You know what you needed there, Ashley? Was another bullet.
Yeah,
bullet.
I did.
Ashley takes notes, and she's a bullet mania. She always puts bullets all over everywhere in her writing.
It threw me off for a loop. I'm a bullet person and a Post-it note person. I have an obscene amount of Post-it notes places. You should see my work folders. It's terrible. But I don't love Andrew Luck this week, guys. I really don't.
No one does.
I mean, the Texans give up the 7th most points to quarterbacks, so hypothetically he should have a good game, but it's too vague. It's too vague for me. If you got another option, play it. I said it before, don't play like last week, and you guys said I was crazy. You didn't play, but I feel like this is another week where maybe you should look for another option.
I'm helping a mutual friend of ours with his fantasy football league because he is a scientist in Antarctica in a submarine. That's legit. So I said that I would help him this season. He took Andrew Luck as the number 1 pick. Quarterbacks went early in that league. Everyone was from Stanford. He was a favorite, so we took him. I've been begging him to trade Andrew Luck for value. We're getting killed. Because our number 1 pick was Andrew Luck. And I just said, listen, man, I know this is against your thought, but we need to get rid of this guy and get value because I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I don't know. Are you guys trading Andrew Luck or are you just keeping him? I mean, if you need a running back, why not? I don't know.
I do think Andrew Luck is going to be better mid-season, but I don't like him anytime soon here. And you're right. If you're hurting at running back or a top wide receiver, why not see if somebody will bite? Because I do think Luck will pop off soon here. But you better make sure that you've got a viable option, your quarterback, or you're going to deeply regret that. So depending on how deep your league is and what's out there, really is, for me, the contingency point there.
Yeah, just remember what you're giving up because he does have that potential to have big numbers mid to late season when you're needing him in the playoffs. So you have to get to the playoffs. So it's kind of like, what do you need more? But
no quarterbacks really had big numbers this year.
It's true. Aaron Rodgers. But
like crazy big numbers, I'm talking. We had some insane.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Both have had 30-plus weeks. So, I don't know. We'll see. It would be interesting. What about the Texans, Brandon?
I'm getting feisty this week. Arian Foster, okay, not the debut that we were hoping for, but he says that he's 100% and that he just had a bad game, which A, I don't believe him, but B, that's good news because that means he's probably going to be 100% this week. So I'm still playing him. He's fine. I'm going to say a name, and then you're going to say, who? Rookie wide receiver Keith Mumphrey. That's a real name. It's been a crazy week. Nate Washington has been ruled out for the Thursday night game with a hamstring injury, and Cecil Shorts has also been ruled out with a shoulder injury. So Keith Mumphrey is the starter, and he'll be opposite DeAndre Hopkins, and he could viably get 8 to 10 targets in this game.
Good.
He is someone that if you are desperate on a bye week, if you're like someone who has Landry and Marshall, and you're just like, what happened? He's not a terrible choice. Also, if you play daily, he's super cheap. Last week he caught 4 of his 7 passes for 56 yards, and that's with a terrible quarterback.
Not bad.
If you throw a touchdown in there, that's a good game. So I don't hate him. And Ryan Mallett has been declared the starter again on Thursday, even though he was benched in the third quarter last week.
And the carousel starts. I hate this. I
do
hate
too.
The week-to-week announcement of who your quarterback's going to be. I hate that.
Yep.
I think it's really poor coaching, personally.
It's heinous coaching. I agree with you.
Well, and it's bad for every single position, right? You have no idea who your quarterback's going to be that week. At least, sink the ship if you're going to sink the ship. Pick a guy and go with it. Or make the switch and say, this is the guy for the rest of the season. Stop the back and forth.
I'll tell you that Ryan Mallett has thrown 1 interception for every touchdown that he's thrown so far this season, but not more. But by the way, that's not great. Somehow DeAndre Hopkins, though, refuses to be terrible. So no matter the circumstance, this guy is actually pretty decent. He is the new Andre Johnson. Legit. 2 back-to-back 100-plus yards a game with a putrid quarterback. So the Colts give up the 6th most points to wide receivers, so he's not a terrible play.
Awesome. Hey guys, it's fantasy season. Are you ready to dominate your league? Download the free Sportsmania app. You can simply import your fantasy team from Yahoo, CBS Sports, and ESPN and get personalized feeds from fantasy football experts. Get breaking news, scoring opportunities, fantasy points, and milestones. With Sportsmania, you also get real-time updates on your players to make smarter lineup decisions. Alerts every time your player is in the red zone. Awesome. Sportsmania brings you a new fantasy team that gives you an edge to help you dominate your league. Get your fantasy on at Sportsmania.
Sportsmania. Good job, Courtney. I'm excited.
Thank you. I'm pumped too. I'm getting my Sportsmania app up right now. Just kidding, I don't have time, but I will.
But I will.
Let's get into Sunday morning right now. Chicago Bears 1-3. The Kansas City Chiefs 1-3.
Hear me, hear me. You want to start the Bears. Kansas City has given up the absolute most fantasy points to quarterbacks and wide receivers. That's crazy. What a mess. Who knew that was going to happen to the Chiefs? Anyway, Jay Cutler made his return last week and surprised the whole fantasy football community by completing 28 passes for 281 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with an interception. But that's him. That's how he plays football.
Mm-hmm.
Accept the interceptions with Jay Cutler. He says he wasn't 100%, but I think he'll be better this week even against the Chiefs. I think he's fine. I mean, this is crazy, but if you need someone, you can get Jay Cutler on the waiver wire. That's a legit thing that can happen this week if you have Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Who else was it on by? Anyway.
Ryan Tannehill.
That's
that.
We're not starting him.
You know,
Fitzy, we're starting him.
Right. It's actually okay for quarterbacks. It's just the Cam Newton thing. Anyway,
Tyrod Taylor.
Him. Yeah, Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this game for him, and if I'm playing daily, I'm considering a super cheap Cutler Royal stack or a Cutler Jeffrey stack, even Marcus Wilson, although I think that's a little too deep for me. But speaking of Jeffrey, he was held out again last week, but as of now, most people think he'll return in week 5. Again, a great matchup, so check the injury reports. And if he doesn't return, frankly, I'm still going Eddie Royal. Like, this guy, he caught 7 of his 10 targets last week for 54 yards and a touchdown versus Oakland. Now it's Oakland, but still the Chiefs, they're giving up even more points than Oakland. So It's a nice connection. It's not a bad play. Martellus Bennett's great, but it's not a great matchup for him. They're actually tougher against tight ends than any other position. You always play Matt Forte, love and forever.
Actually, I dropped Eddie Royal last week. But I had to because I had Delaney Walker and Dwayne Allen as my tight ends. It's like, really, I had nothing to pick up with tight ends.
I had to drop Crockett Gilmore, and he's back too. But yeah, the Chiefs. So Jamal Charles always, Travis Kelce probably. Okay, although the Bears are surprisingly a bad matchup. They've given up the 8th fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends. And listen, I'm almost at the point where I'm starting Bennett every week, but I'm not for sure doing that yet. So, I mean, I think you probably don't have better options. It's fine. Just wanted to let you know.
You mean Kelce?
Kelce, you mean?
Oh, Kelce. What am I doing? I'm talking about Bennett. I'm just so excited about Martellus Bennett.
Should have used a bullet.
Confused. They're both mediocre teams. It's weird. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, and I keep hearing sounds in the background and it's throwing me. Jeremy Maclin seems to be the man now, though. So here's the problem with Travis Kelce. I think that people wanted him to be the next Gronk. He's not the next Gronk. I think we can all accept that now as a reality. Jeremy Maclin, 8 catches for 141 yards in week 3 and 11 catches for 148 yards in week 4. Now, he only scored the touchdown in week 3, but still, he's taking over a large role in that passing game. So I'm a little bit nervous about Kelce moving forward. Not that listen, you don't have better options. You have to start him. Everything's fine. And he still is getting the targets that you need. But he's not going to be the number 1 guy the way that Rob Gronkowski is in New England. So we need to stop those comparisons.
Stop it.
I like it. No more baby Gronk.
No baby Gronk.
Alex Smith is my quarterback in a league. I need him to be a monster.
Monster?
Well, you know, I got somebody on bye. It's a 2-quarterback league. It's rough, all right? Just leave me brains. It's a 16-person league. It's intense.
Like my league where Jay Cutler and Tony Romo both go down the same week, and I had to pick up Brandon Weeden and Jimmy Clausen, and I wanted to cry.
Yep. That's where I'm at.
Tony
Seattle
Romo.
Seahawks 2-2 should be 1-3 at the Cincinnati Bengals 4-0
with the little tappity out the end zone.
I kid.
I was watching it and I was like, wait, they can't do that. And then I was like, maybe I'm losing my mind because I just called the game just so like no big deal.
Yep.
And then afterwards they were like, oh yeah, you can't do that. And I'm like, the end linesman was standing right there, like physically watching him just tap it out.
When Pete Carroll's like, we practiced that in practice. It was like, well, I doubt they do, but I think he was just trying to take the blame on himself and not the kid. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. What it was.
Put up a good game, I will say.
It's sad.
It was so Lions.
It was so.
I mean, it's sad, but it was so Lions.
To do it lose this way.
Yeah.
And for it to be Megatron, I was just like,
I know.
Fantastic play by Cam Chancellor. He came in, he punched the ball out appropriately. That is something they do practice. I don't know if they actually practice the tappity tap out of the end zone, but I know they definitely practice punching the ball.
Under the person's hand.
I keep calling it the dreaded tappity tap. That's what I call it.
Oh my gosh. Well, you did. And right after the game, they're interviewing Matt Stafford, and they're like, "Did you hear about how the last play when they tapped the ball out of the end zone was actually illegal?" And Matthew Stafford, he looks like he's about to like break down in tears. It's like, well, that doesn't make the loss any easier.
Oh, poor little baby.
Did you guys see Dante Stallworth's tweet?
No.
So he tweets out, Cam Chancellor, did they pay him? If not, he should leave the locker room and just smack a big sign on his locker that says, "Pay me, boy!" Like all caps.
Because they haven't paid him.
Because without him, they stunk. But he's saving them.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and when they interviewed him last night after the game, or on Monday night after the game, and one of his players came up, and I can't remember who it was like, "Pay him! Pay him!"
Yes.
He's doing the interview on TV. Yeah. So good.
But it's because it was such a pro move. It was such a pro move to punch it out. He knew that was his only option. He knew that was the only feasible way to save the game, and he executed it perfectly. And quite honestly, Sherman should be the one that's the happiest about Cam Chancellor being back, because Sherman's weaknesses, in my opinion, were very much revealed while Cam was out, that he can only work one side of the field, that he heavily depends on Cam Chancellor in the back so that he can play his receivers up tight on the line, and it just, woof, he is very thankful Cam is back. But I'll get to some actual fantasy analysis now versus us ranting.
Sorry.
But that was fun.
Sorry. Sports.
It was a big moment, yeah. The Bengals defense, guys, is legit. It is legit. So the Bengals give up the 12th fewest points to quarterbacks. Not great news for Russell Wilson. The 11th fewest points to running backs, which is also not great news, as we don't know the status of Marshawn Lynch, per se. We got Thomas Rawls, who did not have that great of a game. And we've got Fred Jackson, who went out hurt. So not great news there. The 17th fewest points to wide receivers. By this point in time, I hope you have figured out that you cannot trust a single Seattle wide receiver. This week it was Jermaine Kearse, but then you also had Baldwin, who got a touchdown. You don't know who it's going to be. As always, we advise
Jimmy Graham
you
had a big week.
to bet them. Jimmy Graham, well, he didn't have a great week this week. And he's not gonna, the week prior to that, yeah. And he's not going to have a good week this week either. They give the 5th fewest points to tight ends. They do give the 7th most points to kickers. So Hauschka, baby.
All right, Hauschka's in.
You rock Hauschka hard this week. You rock him. But anyway, so Fred Jackson, his ankle, he could play in week 5, guys.
Let's get it on.
I love it from Hauschka. But Rawls, everyone's really pumped up and jazzed for Rawls, and he only had 48 yards on 17 carries. I mean, he took the bulk of the touches, but he was not as productive as they wanted to be. They're looking to basically go with Fred Jackson this week if he can play, and they're going to use Rawls in that 3rd down situation. Is basically
love that. I love that Fred Jackson's getting his opportunity.
I do too, and I love he's all decked out in his pink. He's a huge breast cancer supporter, and I love it. Love me some Fred Jackson. But Jimmy Graham, he only had 4 receptions for 29 yards. Another bad week. He threw the fit, and they threw him the ball, and now we're back to the status quo of him not really being that involved in the offense. Per usual.
They can't block. And they have a terrible offensive line. It's called math.
They do have a terrible offensive line. Now, Russell Wilson had 20 of his 26 pass attempts completed for 287 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. It was just another okay game. But he's incredibly efficient in terms of real football. So that's where people get confused. Russell Wilson is a good quarterback in real football. They're low-scoring games. They depend on their defense. He doesn't give the game away for you, but that doesn't, at this point in time, make him a fantastic fantasy play because they aren't scoring touchdowns, and that's how he needs to score. And he's not even running that much either. He's getting, 20-some yards maybe a game. So it's not even that facet of his game is in line either right now. So it's a rough matchup. I don't like this one at all. Now, the Seahawks also have an incredibly good defense. They give the 6th fewest points to quarterbacks, the 2nd fewest to running backs, the 3rd fewest to wide receivers, the 4th most to defenses, and 10th most to tight ends. So maybe a little tight end play here for Eifert. He's really the only one that's possibly going to have a good game. But Jeremy Hill, that beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, but he had so few touches.
He had 9 carries, only 40 yards, but 3 touchdowns. Yeah. 3 touchdowns.
Can't call that.
You can't, but that's my issue. This is the classic Bengals running back situation. Giovanni Bernard, he had the team high 13 carries for at least 62 yards, which is more respectable than the 40. He did have a touchdown, and he almost had a second touchdown too. That was, basically calling the 1 yard line. So he still is the better back, but Jeremy Hill's the one that got the 3 touchdowns. So it's this very.
I would still play Giovanni Bernard over
I would
Jeremy
too.
Hill.
I was gonna say that is still my recommendation, is to go Giovanni Bernard.
Consistency is something that you can't take away.
And they do go to Giovanni Bernard in the fourth quarter in the second half. I don't know if, Hill just kind of runs out of steam, but they do tend to, as well as carries-wise and the load, go more to Giovanni Bernard. So there is a good chance it's a low-scoring game, that especially if it's in the fourth quarter, it comes down to that. It will be Giovanni Bernard who scores that last touchdown. So that's my recommendation. Also, Tyler Eifert, as we said, the tight end is a little bit where they're a little bit weak on the Seahawks defense, so he's got a great opportunity to score this week, and I think he's going to do great. And Dalton, guys,
It's real.
It really is. Dalton has 9.19 per passing attempts in the air. That's his yardage, which is the 9th highest in the league. And part of that's because he's got his weapons back. He's got Mohamed Sanu, he's got Marvin Jones, we got Tyler Eifert, we got A.J. Green. And what I like about that is he's throwing further than most quarterbacks in the league, which opens up the opportunity for some of those big plays in terms of Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones. When you got players like that don't always get the most yardage, they have upside for the fact that Dalton does kind of air the ball out. So they've got the potential for that long 60-yard pass. Even if they catch just one pass all game, that's at least 6 points for you, So I do like that, but I don't like it this week against the Seahawks because it's going to be tight. It's going to be a defensive game.
I disagree. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to tear it up.
You think they're going to destroy the Seahawks?
I think they're going to tear it up. I don't think they're going to destroy them, but I think they're going to get 24 points. So, that's 4 touchdowns, to go somewhere.
Now, I will say they're playing it in Cincy, which is a much better scenario for Cincinnati receivers and whatnot, because it's not in Seattle. So that is the good news.
Yeah.
I mean, 24 points, 3 touchdowns and a field goal.
Yeah.
It's doable. It's definitely doable. I'd say one to Giovanni Bernard, one to Eifert.
Yeah.
One Bernard, one Eifert, one probably
Green.
Jones.
Or maybe even Dalton running in.
I don't know.
That's
I don't think Dalton will be running it in, but I think that either Jones or maybe it's Mohamed Sanu. I think they have a lot of weapons, which makes it very. It's going to be a very interesting game for Seattle's D. And they're not turning the ball over. So Seattle's D actually, I don't think is going to be that great of a play this week either, because Cincinnati just hasn't been turning the ball over. So.
Well, you are right, Courtney, because Sherman only plays the right side of the field. He doesn't switch up. So if A.J. Green's not on the right, then Sherman's not on him. So they could get really creative with their schemes in terms of where they're going to place their receivers to really capitalize on that.
Yeah. And they've got the running back and the catching back, and as I call them, and so it's going to make it a more of an interesting game. I'm going go Cincinnati. Go Cincy, go Cincy. All right, Washington Redskins 2-2 at the Atlanta Falcons 4-0. Do not like the Redskins though.
No, there's not. I'm going to make this one really short because why waste our time talking about the Redskins all that much? We've got the running back situation, which is still, kind of murky. But what I will say, which is good, and we did say that we think this situation is going to get ironed out probably by around week 7, and I think we're seeing that progression, right? Because we're seeing that while none of them are being super productive, they are still basically using Alfred Morris as their back. They're using, Jones as their change of pace, and he hasn't been doing all that great anyway. He only had 7 carries for 11 yards, and then they had random other players coming in, but they're using Alfred Morris primarily. He had that team-high 17 carries, so that is what you can at least count on. He had 62 yards, which isn't terrible. If he would have had a touchdown, you wouldn't be complaining about the game at all. But I do think
62 yards and 17 carries is pretty bad.
No, but I'm still thinking he had 6 points. And if he had a touchdown on that, you had 12 points, you wouldn't be complaining as much.
Okay.
He could be doing better for sure. We got tons
give
of
you
running
that.
backs that are giving 100-some yards, but if he was scoring even one touchdown a week, we wouldn't be having these constant stay away from all Redskin running back situations. But the team's just so bad; they're not even getting near the end zone, So that's a problem. But it is ironing itself out, and so if you had to pick one, I would say Alfred Morris. Surprise, surprise, guys! Jordan Reed injured.
No way.
Week 4. Not just one injury. We have a knee, we've got an ankle, and a concussion in play. Holy moly. It's just, the concussion he's had problems since college with. He hasn't played more than 11 games in a single season. And we've got a right ankle sprain. We've got collateral ligament sprain. It's bad. And we knew this was going to happen. This is why we said try not to take Jordan Reed, because he's literally going to give you 4 to 6 games this season. And that's what you're getting. But the good news, Deshaun Jackson, there's a possibility he might come back and play this week, guys. Oh, I hope so. He's day-to-day, but he was limited in practice, so these are somewhat good signs. So if he doesn't play this week, I feel really good that he for sure will be there week 6. So if they're not already to buy by then. So I like that a lot. Look out possibly for James Crowder if he doesn't play. He had 12 targets and 7 catches for 67 yards. So if Deshaun doesn't play, he may get a little bit more action, but the moment Deshaun's back, dump him, it'll be gone. And Pierre Garçon is starting to see some love too. So he left with a sprained knee, came back in, he's all good to go, he's practiced, feel okay about him.
Awesome. Atlanta Falcons. So if you watched this game last week and you had Matt Ryan or Julio Jones, you would have thought they must have lost 21-48. Nope. They didn't. Don't get crazy. You're still starting them against Washington, okay?
Heck yeah.
I know Washington's defense is okay, but, whatever. This is Atlanta Falcons time, guys. They're so good. So who got those fantasy points? His name is Devontae Freeman for the second week in a row.
Up. It looks good.
Pour it up.
As a Tevin Coleman owner, I am not happy.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Tevin.
Bye. He had 3 rushing touchdowns for the second week in a row. So amazing. Now he's most likely won't do that again 3 weeks in a row, but at least you feel good about putting him in your lineup. So
I think he's good for at least 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and yards. Yards. I mean, they feed him the ball, and Coleman might be coming back this week, but even last week, his backup rookie Teron Ward had 15 fantasy points. So even if Coleman does come back, they're running the ball, which is great to see in Atlanta, that they're really being able to spread the ball around. So I'm into it.
I have a hot tip.
What?
Can I tell it?
Sure.
Devontae Freeman was the first running back to score 3 touchdowns in back-to-back outings since LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006. But Tomlinson did it 3 times. So I do think he's going to go for the three-peat to tie LaDainian Tomlinson. Now, unfortunately, Washington's a tough defense, so it may not happen. But I still think he's going to score, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they're going to try for that.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it doesn't.
I think he's still going to have a great fantasy day. I just don't know if it's going to be 30-plus fantasy points again. But it's possible.
But they'll try.
But it's possible. When you look at him, he's breaking out in space, right? It's not even like you're like 1-yard line, goal line touchdowns. This is the guy's breaking through holes, making fantastic cuts, and just like booking it, and no one can catch him.
Right.
So it's totally
so
possible.
it's very fun. I love watching him. And Leonard Hankerson, you guys, I said he was going to have a nice week, and he did. So 103 yards and a touchdown. The Redskins give up the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I am, again, putting him in my lineup. Feel free to do so as well. It's Washington, baby. Jacksonville Jaguars 1-3 at Tampa Bay Buccaneers 1-3. Now this is the game of the week. Game of the week.
Oh
Game
man.
of the week.
Please don't play Blake Bortles. Please, unless you're in a 2-quarterback lead. You know what? Yeah, guys, the Buccaneers get the 13th fewest points to quarterbacks. I mean, granted, he went 28 for 50, 298 yards against the Colts, but I don't know. I just my issue here is that the guard, the offensive guard Brandon Linder, was placed on IR. So they already had so many O-line issues. They finally somewhat shored it up, and now we've lost a guard here, right? And so they're losing a lot of that strength and security they had in the interior, and I don't like that when it comes to Blake Bortles right now, especially because the running game is kind of like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Julius Thomas did meet with the doctor, guys, though. His status is basically uncertain at this point, week to week as we thought. He has not been cleared to play in week 5 yet, but he was cleared to begin catching some passes on Wednesday. If he does play, they've been pretty clear he'll be in a very limited role. So don't go thinking if Julius Thomas does get the active designation for Sunday that he's going to blow up. It's not likely.
But pick him up.
But pick him up if he's out there. And don't be surprised, too, if they're using a lot more Mercedes Lewis because they lost that offensive guard, they need more strength on the line. And Julius Thomas is a terrible, terrible blocker.
Jimmy Graham.
So he's pretty useless for you there. Allen Robinson, though, he is the top in the NFL with 22 yards per catch, guys. Thus far in the first 4 weeks. And sometimes
Allen Hurns can't be too far behind him either.
Allen Hurns is killing it.
But Allen Hurns, guys, he did not practice on Wednesday. Ankle and thigh injury. Marquise Lee also was out with a hamstring. So keep your eye on him because Hurns, if he does play him. Same with Allen Robinson, but make sure that he's healthy because Allen Robinson is the number 1, but Hurns is a very close number 2 behind.
I have been so high on Allen Hurns, and
I love Allen Hurns.
It's coming home to roost. All right, the Buccaneers. Austin Seferian-Jenkins is probably still a week away from coming back, but if someone dropped him, this is your warning. He will not be available next week. So if you are in a tight end conundrum, he may be your answer. Jameis Winston refuses to be a good quarterback, and it's distressing Mike Evans owners. So he just won't do it.
I can't remember his statement. He said something like, well, I guess I need to put some more effort into preparation or something along those lines. Do you know what I'm talking about? What was the sentence?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sure it was ridiculous. I don't listen to his press conferences.
SiriusXM show on Saturday nights from 8 to 10 in our dramatic reading.
Oh, the dramatic readings are funny. I may be the only person who likes them.
What?
But I think they're funny. We have a new producer that's going to be working with us. Tim Reardon is going to be our main producer, so we're going to make him do a dramatic reading this week.
Yeah. He's not new. He's with us. He just isn't the main producer.
Right. He doesn't usually
this week.
Terrell usually takes the lead, but Tim's taking the lead. So this is exciting. I told you last week that cornerback and swish swash amazing guy Josh Norman was going to destroy Jameis Winston and Mike Evans, and he did just that.
NFC Defensive Player of the Week again.
I told you, Josh Norman is killer. Listen, Winston's thrown 7 interceptions to 6 touchdowns on the season. He's between 12 and 18 fantasy points per game, and that's with him trying to rush around. It's more than likely 12, though, with very little upside, even in a decent matchup like the Jaguars at home. Sorry. But that brings us to Mike Evans. He is the number 1 guy, so don't get fooled by Vincent Jackson's big game last week. Mike Evans is the number 1 guy. Now, the problem is that he's going to be defended like the number 1 guy, and that means he's going to be in double coverage. Double coverage is something that a quarterback needs to have precision with, right? He has to be able to throw the ball on a line, and Jameis Winston has not proven to be able to do that, and that's what's killing Mike Evans. My suggestion to you, and you ladies, please jump in, pair him up with someone. I'm trading away Mike Evans if I have him. Anyone else?
Yeah, I told you not to even draft him in the beginning of the season for this reason.
I love Vincent Jackson.
I do too. Vincent Jackson's like the dump guy. Like
I thought he was going to have a great game last week, and he did. So I'm into it.
Yeah.
Give me some wide receiver 2s all day. Take him.
But that is a good option, Courtney. If Vincent Jackson's out there, get rid of Evans and pick up Jackson because Jackson's having good games.
Trade Evans.
I like it. Trade Evans.
Jackson.
That's what I'm saying. Trade Evans and get Jackson.
Trade Evans and get Jackson.
And let teams double up on Evans and be happy with what you can get out of Jackson as like a wide receiver 3. Do it.
Oh yeah.
Do it.
Do it.
Yeah, so Doug Martin had a great game. It was the first rushing touchdown that wasn't from Jameis Winston on the season, but Charles Sims went into the end zone too. So I don't love this moving forward, but I don't hate it in bad matchup or in good matchups. Jacksonville's mediocre against the run. I'm okay with it. Once again, Vincent Jackson had a huge week. He's a boomer bust guy though, so use your discretion. Go on the matchup, and there you go. Charles Sims is a really good pass blocker actually, so he is getting a lot of
snap count.
Yes, a high snap count. So if you're in a PPR league especially, he's not a bad play.
Sign me up. Sign me up. I just put him in one of my PPR leagues, so I'm about it this week. I need him. New Orleans Saints 1-3 at the Philadelphia Eagles 1-3.
So kind of just do comparisons this matchup because this is one of those teams that just infuriates me. And it always does every year. So the Eagles, I will say, give up the 5th fewest points to running backs, the 13th fewest to quarterbacks, and the 5th most to wide receivers. So I'm only mentioning those. That's all we're going to really talk about here in terms of, let's start with our running backs. We've got 3 main players right now, right? We've got Mark Ingram, we've got C.J. Spiller, and we've got Kyrie Robinson. I do want you to know that Mark Ingram is still the main guy. Thank goodness. Whew. About time. He had 17 carries, 77 yards. He also had 6 receptions and they're 51 yards. You can't be mad about that. He's doing great. Now, we've got the C.J. Spiller, Kyrie Robinson debacle here, right? Because Kyrie Robinson came in a lot, especially at the end of the game. He had 6 carries for 16 yards, which is not great, but he had a touchdown. He's one of these guys that steals the touchdown away from you if you're a Mark Ingram owner, which is so frustrating. And then you got C.J. Spiller that everyone's going to be all hyped up about, right? Because you're going to be like, oh, he scored. It was on like the last play that he scored. He just carried the ball twice for 10 yards. That was it. And then he had that 80-yard touchdown catch at the end. Do not get looped in and fooled by the C.J. Spiller aura that people always do when they go pick C.J. Spiller up. Don't do it. All you will get is disappointment. He will blow up either on your bench, never when he's actually in the game for you. He will get hurt and he won't play and you will be angry. That sums up that running back story. Yeah. But I will say, Willie Snead, I'm intrigued by him. He had 6 receptions for 89 yards, and Drew Brees seems to really like him. He seems to be always looking for him, which is interesting because Marquise Colston, Brandon Cooks, these are the guys that are supposed to be the top receivers. Colston only had 4 receptions for 19 yards. Cooks only had 4 receptions for 25 yards. It's ridiculous, whereas Snead had 89 yards.
I would drop Brandon Cooks in my leagues if I didn't think I'd get left out of the fantasy community. That's how I feel about that.
I can't trust him. I'm not having Brandon Cooks in my lineup anymore. I can't do it. Drew Brees, I will say this though. He was completed 33 of his 41 pass attempts. Throwing 41 times when you've got coming off a hurt shoulder that is still questionable and went for 359 yards, I feel A-okay about you. He's saying he's working into these programs to increase his arm strength back from this injury. Hey, you're A-okay with me the way you're throwing right now, and you're just going to get better. I'm good with it. I just wish I knew who you were going to throw to. Unfortunate. Nope.
No, that's the deal with the whole Eagles, Ashley. All of them. All of them. They're all a mess. I hate the Eagles in every way possible. Let's just get into it. Sam Bradford had 270 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. By far his best game. Congratulations, Bradford. Still don't know if I trust him. Although he is going up against a weak defense, so you could possibly play him if you need to. New Orleans give up the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, so it's there. Murray came back and had the same kind of game as he did before he left. 8 attempts for 36 yards, but 30 of those yards were in 1 run. So,
Did you see after the game, Courtney?
What? About him complaining and needs to be used more?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use him.
Well, 8 attempts is bad. I mean, no one can do anything with 8 attempts. Technically, it's 4 yards.
He's getting 8 attempts because he's getting no yards. He's gotten no yards the weeks before. He's coming off of injury. You had a running back who was successful, 2 running backs that were successful with his absence. Why give him no? None of them were good this week. That's my whole point with getting into this, is now you get them both back. Both Sproles and Matthews were bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Chip Kelly. I say pick 2 and go with it because picking 3 is not working out for you. So
No
let's
one's
just
getting
do
into
2.
a flow. No one is.
No one's getting into a flow. Not at all. It just really upsets me. Anyways, I'll get into it anymore.
You actually were like genuinely upset. I love you.
Yes, Riley
That's
Cooper
really
and Austin, Miles Austin, he's back from the dead. Found the
Miles
end zone
Austin.
last week. It's crazy. But I don't trust either of them either. I still believe in Jordan Matthews is the guy. But I hate this offense. Belichick might screw you over in running backs, but Chip Kelly screws you over in every single
facet.
position.
Yep.
I hate Chip Kelly. It's Chip Kelly's fault. I'm blaming him. It's done. It's over. It's over. Let's get back into positive news because we got a really great matchup next. Cleveland Browns 1-3. The Baltimore Ravens 1-3.
I actually think this is the game of the week.
I love this game. I'm excited for this one.
No, it's not, you guys.
All right.
I got into it.
Do you need to start a quarterback in an eliminator tournament? Well, don't look now, but Josh McCown has scored 19 points in week 3 and 22 points in week 4, over 300 yards in both outings, back to back. Baltimore is a good matchup. In season long, you have better options, but if you're playing daily, you might want to,
And yet
swing for
people
the
are still
fences.
crying for Menzel.
Of course they are.
I'm one of them.
I didn't even put him in that. Those words are not in my write-up. Travis Benjamin. Hashtag ew. Travis Benjamin had another 10 targets in week 4. He didn't score, but he did get 79 yards. I think he's a legit guy. This is how it's going to be. So I like it now because of the targets. Before it was like on 3 targets he was doing things. Now they're targeting him multiple times per game. He's owned in 75% of Yahoo leagues, but in case you're playing with people that just don't follow football, check your waiver wire and pick him up if he is there. They give up the second most points to opposing wide receivers. Baltimore does. So nice. Duke Johnson's officially a must-own in PPR leagues. Hello, Duke Johnson.
Hello.
Right before kickoff, I completed a trade with this guy in one of my expert leagues where he gave me Duke Johnson and I gave him Nelson Aguilar.
Winning.
Although Aguilar didn't have a bad game, actually.
No, he had his best game, but it wasn't Duke Johnson's game.
What's so funny is I've had Duke Johnson on my roster all year in that 16-man league with Brad Evans from Yahoo, and I played Duke Johnson this week because I had somebody on bye.
Same here.
First week that I've ever played Duke Johnson. And my husband on Sunday was like, oh my gosh, look at Duke go. And I was like, guess who's starting now? Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
I'm starting by default, but I feel like the smartest woman alive.
Genius. Yeah. I mean, people were blowing up last week. They were like,
so good.
Johnson. So, Baltimore's a tough matchup. They get up the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs. So if he doesn't do as great this week, that's fine. Don't drop him. Don't drop him. He is the next guy. Don't worry about it. Patience. Crowell is still getting, though, a lot of carries as well. He had a decent game. I know it wasn't as explosive as Duke Johnson, but it was decent. So keep him on your roster as well. You might even be able to get some trade value for him, but I don't hate him anyway. Gary Barnidge, I call him Mr. Old-Timey Guy because his name is very old, right? Gary Barnidge. It sounds like he's from like the Rockefeller era.
Sounds like
Anyway.
like a pharmacy on a main street.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah.
He caught all 6 of his targets last week for 75 yards and another touchdown. He has to be in the bye week conversation for fill-ins for sure.
He's who I actually picked up when I had the Delaney Walker, Dwayne Allen debacle, and I was very happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you'll be happy this week as well. Ravens. This is so Raven. I can't believe we haven't made that joke on this show yet. Are we just too old?
So Raven.
We're too old.
Okay, we're too old. But I can't
watched
believe
Disney back in the day of like the purple piranhas and the orange iguana. Was that even Disney? What was that? Nickelodeon?
Well, I remember Mickey Mouse Club with Britney Spears because we're the same age. And by the way, she has like kids
Justin
that are
Timberlake and Ryan Gosling and Kerry Russell. That's how old we're dating ourselves.
Hoofda. Anyway, Steve Smith Sr. literally broke his back, and he's still only listed as doubtful. He has not been ruled out yet for Sunday. He and Jason Witten are going to do a who's going to not die first competition, and I'm going to watch. These guys are just badasses. They're just amazing. So anyway, he also said of his former teammate, safety Mike Mitchell, the guy who broke his back, if you will, he said that he is, quote, unquote, on his lifetime hit list.
That is the list I would not want to be on. Steve Smith Sr.
Which I would never laugh about somebody making a hit list. It's so not cool. But Steve Smith Sr., you can do it.
He's hilarious.
So
but here's the deal. He might be back next week. It's nuts. It's nuts. As far as we know, as for the fill-ins, Kamar Aiken is the guy to grab, but look for Marlon Brown, Darren Waller, and Chris Evans to get involved. I still wouldn't love any of them. You can run in Cleveland, though, and Justin Forsett had a bounce-back game last week with 27 carries for 150 yards.
Yeah,
so
he did.
I'm starting Justin Forsett again, and I'm sorry if he stinks, but he shouldn't this week. Seriously, you can run on Cleveland. And you can't trust Joe Flacco. Going up against Pittsburgh, he stunk it up. So this is a good matchup again, but whatever, lame. And Crockett Gilmore might come back. He's still nursing that calf injury, but he's listed as questionable, and people are optimistic. So keep your eye on the injury report.
All right, real fast, ladies. I have a fantasy question for the two of you.
Okay.
I'm in an 8-man league, non-PPR. So the waiver wire, is nice. Okay? So Travis Benjamin is on the waiver wire. Should I pick him up? And who do I drop? I've got on my bench James Jones, John Brown, Mike Evans, Martavius Bryant, Giovanni Bernard, and Chris Ivory. Giovanni Bernard.
Evans.
Oh, no, Bryant, for sure. With Michael Vick,
I'd still say Evans, but I hate Evans.
you can't drop Mike Evans. You can get value for Mike Evans. You can't get value for Martavius Bryant.
So we're dropping them over John Brown.
What's
or
it?
James
18?
Jones. 8-person league.
Is this for you, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
started it?
brand. You could probably drop him because you do have Michael Vick, and Vick is.
Do you think that do you think nobody will pick up Martavius Bryant anyways at this point?
There's less chance of picking up Martavius Bryant than there is them picking up Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Okay. We're doing it, guys. We're doing it. Let's move on. St. Louis Rams 2-2. The Green Bay Packers 4-0. Thank you, ladies. I just wanted to make sure.
The drama.
Yeah. So the Packers defense is good again, guys.
Yep.
It's been a while, but they're good again.
Well, they also play terrible teams.
There's
It's a
that.
thing. It's a
But
thing.
you know what? But they're looking, honestly, no, they're looking better. I like it. They give up the 13th fewest points to quarterbacks, 13th fewest to running backs, 4th fewest to wide receivers, 17th fewest to tight ends, 13th to kickers, and 4th fewest to defenses. I like it. They're all over the board. And they're going to play the Rams, who struggle a bit. But you know what? They actually had a good game last week. And you know what? Todd Gurley came back sooner than I thought he would. I thought he looked really, really good. He had 19 carries, 146 yards, 2 catches from their 15, which is like, eh. But you know what? That is a really good game. And what I was most impressed about was at the end when he had the know-how, right? And he's coming from college where it wouldn't have mattered, but the NFL it does. He laid down versus trying to go for the score just to kill the time and to get the win. And I thought that was so smart, and I loved seeing that from Todd Gurley as a rookie. So I'm really into him. He did kind of, the knee is still maybe kind of an issue, but the good news is that he practiced without a knee brace. So these are all positive signs that he is getting healthier and healthier, and I am loving Todd Gurley. Again, they give up the 13th fewest points to wide receivers, but that's kind of almost middle of the pack, so I still think you can play Gurley. Tavon Austin, he's a tricky one, guys. He's had 2 huge weeks in sandwiching 2 awful weeks. Awful weeks. I still can't tell you to play any wide receiver of the Rams. I can't in good faith. But I did like when Stedman laid down to take a nap, which he did get fined for. He's going to try to appeal it. Do you see that?
Yeah, I love the nap.
Because he used the football. I was like, the nap was genius. I loved it. He's been waiting for that one.
Whatever. He shouldn't. He shouldn't. He didn't get called on the field for it. So just let it go.
But I loved it. So funny. Nick Foles, though, he threw 3 touchdowns against the Cardinals. So that's pretty good. What I do like is that I think he is going to get better and better as they start to actually develop a running game. That is going to help the wide receivers. I just can't tell you in good faith to do it right now. I just can't.
Packers.
I don't care about the down game against San Francisco. It was such a easy win for them. They just didn't even try. So
they just shut up.
Yeah, they just were like, we're gonna get this one done. And I know that they're not gonna say they did that, but that's what happened. Start your studs. I do want to point out this is a tough matchup. St. Louis is a tough defense, so they may not have the same points that you're used to, but you're not gonna have them blow up on your bench. Eddie Lacy could have a bounce back. He's had a kind of season, frankly, but he's mostly been dealing with injuries. And St. Louis is weaker against the run than they are against the pass, so I like that. And Richard Rodgers is a fine option if Greg Olson's out. Fine, I said it, but you know what? He's either going to get you 3 points or he's going to get you 10 points. There's nothing in between, and he's not going to explode with 30 points. It's just not going to happen. Also, Davante Adams is still struggling with his injury, so make sure to check the injury report. And I don't think you should start him anyway. I'm very disappointed in the injury status of Davante Adams. And I can't even say it's about his play. It really is about the injury. So
Randall Cobb's hurt, too. So insert Ty Montgomery there.
Mm-hmm.
And James Jones.
And James
Always
Jones
James
also
Jones.
is injured. Yeah.
Oh.
Buffalo Bills 2-2. The Tennessee Titans 1-2.
So LaShawn McCoy could be sidelined for 3 to 4 weeks, which is bad news. He did get an MRI, and it showed a new tear in his hamstring. So there is a potential he can come back sooner, but he may not want to because they kind of rushed him a bit, and now he's got a new tear. So now he's set back again. So I think he's going to kind of put his foot down and say, I'm not coming back until I'm healed. The problem here is now, it is good, but now the problem here is Carlos Williams. He had an okay game. He rushed 80 times for 40 yards. He had 3 receptions for the 30, so you can't be too upset with him because he did have a touchdown as well. But he sustained a concussion in the game, and he has to go under concussion protocol, and he's not been cleared yet. So the Bills had a fire sale bringing people in. Not good people. Insert Trent Richardson coming in to work out for practice. Dan Herron coming in.
Yay!
Alfonso Smith. So who did they go with, ladies? A Dan Herron.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dan Herron's legit. Dan Herron's legit.
Best options. But
Dan Boom Herron.
The Bills will turn to Anthony Booby Dixon.
Boom and Booby. Nice.
Booby
Dixon.
If Carlos doesn't go. I don't love that. Carlos has been great. Do not expect that same kind of production out of Booby Dixon. It's not going to happen. It's just not.
I want to boom Booby Dixon.
I hope Booby booms too, but I just don't think Booby's going to boom this week.
We haven't sang enough.
Yeah.
We haven't.
I say Charles Clay, guys. We have not talked about him much, and he's been having a pretty good little season. 9 receptions for 111 yards last week. He looked good. He was targeted the most out of anybody with 13 times. Sammy Watkins is still a little injured. He may or may not play in Week 5. Percy Harvin didn't participate with a hip injury. So they're leaning on Charles Clay, and with Courtney's rookie, well, he's not a rookie, but it's like his first year playing as a starter. He's depending on Charles Clay, and he's getting a lot of looks, and I like it.
I like it. We're into it. Yes, ma'am. Oh, excuse me. Titans. I was about to say my name. We got the Courtneys next. The Titans next. Coming up by. This is my team, though. I really love this team. I've really grown to, my baby. Listen, I'm playing him, you guys. I'm playing him. I'm playing Marcus Wheaton. He's had 2 games with over 20 fantasy points, and the Bills give up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I am all in. You got Teddy Bridgewater on bye. You got Ryan Tannehill. Sign me up. I'm in it. Marcus Mariota. I'm playing him this week, you guys.
Even if they weren't on bye, you should be starting Marcus Mariota for those guys.
Yes. Kendall Wright is a must start as well. Bam. 3rd most fantasy points given up to wide receivers, which brings me to Darrell Green Beckham, who was arrested this week. It's just for unpaid traffic tickets. Don't worry. Don't worry. No smoking weed. No hitting anybody. Trying to kill someone. We're fine. We're totally fine. The teams agree that they're not going to punish him at all. He's playing in full. I love him as your flex. It seems seems to find the end zone, you guys. I don't care how you get your fantasy points, we just want them.
Orange is new black.
That's right. That's right. Delaney Walker can go back into your lineup as well. He should be great with another week to recover from his injury previously in week 2. So I'm in. Running backs are too dicey to put them in your lineup. So keep an eye on them throughout the season. But right now I'm staying away from all of them.
Antonio Andrews, the new guy on the block.
They're all new. They're all old. They're all coming around. It's like all your ex-boyfriends you just can't get rid of. They're just all there.
It's the worst.
They're the worst. All right, let's get into the later games. The Arizona Cardinals 3-1, and the Detroit Lions 0-4. All right, the Cardinals. All right, let's see here. The Lions have given up the 12th most fantasy points to both quarterbacks and wide receivers. So you can go ahead and start Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald this week. I know neither gave you great fantasy points last week, but the Lions are not the St. Louis Rams, people. They're not.
Yeah.
So it's okay. They're all going to have down weeks against the Rams, the Broncos, sometimes the Seahawks. So just get over it, people.
Oddly, in San Diego.
And San Diego,
Yeah.
right? And Washington, which just blows my mind. Blows it. Again, this is a better matchup against Detroit for Chris Johnson. He ran for 83 yards and caught all 3 targets for another 11 yards. Only Danny Woodhead and AP had very nice games against Detroit, and what do they have in common? They all are able to catch the ball as well as run. So I'm excited. So I'm gonna go with Chris Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm all in. There were plenty of targets to go around last week. John Brown actually led the pack with 10 targets. Fitzgerald had 9, and Floyd got 7. So they're still airing out the ball, even though they're running it too. So this offense is just moving and grooving. I'm in. I know Brown hasn't given you that big impact you're hoping for before the season started, but don't worry, guys. It's coming. It's coming. Chandler.
Catanzaro.
Yes, the kicker is a must start. Thank you, Ashley Williams. I was waiting for somebody to finish my sentence. And I think the Cardinals' defense will have a bounce back week as well. So I'm okay with you starting the Arizona defense this week too.
I like it. Detroit Lions time.
Yep.
The sad Lions. And it's going to be sad again this week, unfortunately for them. Stafford, I mean, he's not looking as bad as he did at moments last year, but it's also not great. He only had 203 yards off 35 pass attempts. No touchdowns, no interceptions last week. It's not good. He's now gone, guys, 7 games in a row when he has not thrown for 300, and this is by the longest streak that he has gone of not being able to throw over 300 yards in his entire career. That is a problem. And even worse news is that Stafford has been held to just 183 passing yards when he's faced the Cardinals. So it's going to get worse than what you've seen. It can get worse, and it's going to this week, more than likely.
Yes.
The running game is terrible. Amir Abdullah is not doing well. Joique Bell didn't practice. Zach Zener came in and didn't do a whole lot either. You're staying away from all of them. Calvin Johnson looked better, I thought, than what you'd seen. Granted, he only had 56 yards, and he had the whole Cam Chancellor poke the ball away. But he would have had a decent game had he got that touchdown. But again, it's not going to be a great week for him. And Eric Ebron, who has been someone that Stafford has been targeting, he's got a bruised knee. He may be out for 3 weeks to heal. They say it's up to the individual. But he didn't practice Wednesday, so it's not looking good for this week either.
Sad. New England Patriots are back from bye, guys. 3-0. The Dallas Cowboys 2-2.
Well, the Patriots, you start everyone, obviously, because they just, score points in all ways. However, so far this season, Dallas has been a top 10 defense against the pass and a bottom 10 against the run. The only consistent passing yards that they're giving up are actually to running backs catching passes. Therefore, I do suggest to start Dion Lewis and then start LeGarrette Blount, too, because then they're going to blow him out and have him go in the second half. So, you know how I feel about starting running backs from the Patriots, but sorry, it is what it is. And everyone else, whatever. I'm not going to talk to you about Gronk, please. Cowboys, I don't feel good about anyone on this team versus the Patriots. Whedon is a no-go, but at least he didn't throw an interception last week, ? Randall keeps getting benched. And, I just get the feeling the Cowboys don't like him. I mean, you bench someone for almost fumbling. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And then it's a rough matchup against the run, so I don't love it anyway. Witten is the man, but he's only scored you 5 or 6, fantasy points. So if that's good enough for you during a bye week and you have Greg Olsen, okay. But, maybe you could do better. Someone with higher upside. I hate
Gary
to say this,
Barnidge.
but Gary Barnidge. Yeah,
I was just like Gary
Charles
Barnidge.
Clay.
Go find him.
Yeah. So, but listen, it's a bye week situation. It is what it is. Terrence Williams is a boom and bust guy. He did get the touchdown last week, which saved me in a few leagues. I'm sure that it saved other people. Yeah. So thank you. I'll say that. But I have a tough time trusting him. But now Lance Dunbar's out for the season, you guys, with a torn ACL. So if you still have him on your roster, you need to get rid of him. It's really sad. He did a great job. So I support, or at least don't make fun of you now for picking up Cole Beasley. I know he's a shot in the dark, but at least I'm not angry about it. Last week he caught all 6 of his targets for 62 yards. He still hasn't scored a touchdown yet. But New England does give up the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers so far this season, so he's not a terrible play.
Bam. Denver Broncos 4-0 against the Oakland Raiders 2-2. I'm excited for this game. It's going to be a good one. So I'm going to start backwards with the Denver Broncos here. Let's start off with the Denver defense, because they're amazing. And although Minnesota didn't turn the ball over last week a lot, but they had 7 sacks. 7. Yes. And they should have a great game against this young team. The Oakland Raiders are just babies. They're all just little babies in Crabtree. So it should be good. And then let's move on to the kicker, Brandon McManus. The kicker has yet to miss a kick this season.
That's saying a lot.
What'd you say?
That is saying a lot
That's
when it comes to
saying a
kickers
lot.
this year.
And the worst kicker to go up against the Oakland Raiders still got 9 fantasy points. So he's going to have double digits, you guys. So sign me up. I'm in. Now let's get into reality. C.J. Anderson had his best game with 70 total yards. It's a thing, guys. It's a thing. It's not getting any better any sooner, so it's just what it is. Sharing balls with Hellman. So that's what it is going to be. Hellman was able to find a hole, luckily for him, and had a 72-yard touchdown, although he didn't have much going on with the rest of the game either. So it's just, if they don't get the touchdown, which they usually don't get the touchdowns, it's a 7-point game. So I don't know. I don't have either one of them. I think you should trade them, but if you have them, I'm going Hellman. Let's just say that. It's all about those targets, and Demaryius Thomas continues to see double-digit targets. You can't sit a guy who does that. I know he's not having a huge year because he is not finding the end zone, but he will. It's okay. But I like Sanders this week even more. He has been so quiet these last couple weeks. But last year he was able to get 2 touchdowns against the Oakland Raiders, and this year they're giving up more fantasy points to wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 1s. I'm kind of like all about Emmanuel Sanders this week. You know who else I'm going to like playing, and I usually will not suggest this, is Owen Daniels. I say he's a good play this week.
Yeah, I was like,
Can't believe it, but he is. He's found the end zone the last 2 weeks, and the Raiders give up the most fantasy points to tight ends. Therefore, we are playing him. They did give up 3 touchdowns to Gronk, but we're going to scratch that one. Oh, that's against not even playing against Gronk. Excuse me, that's my other team I'm going to cover next. That is not playing against Gronk, so that's great. And play Peyton Manning. He's good for at least 20 fantasy points this week.
Ooh.
It's true. At least.
Raiders.
Hello.
So the Bronco D is really good, and it's hard for me to say you should play anyone against the Broncos. But you know what? I actually feel kind of good about this team. I kind of do. I love Derek Carr. I do. This is, he has scored the most of any quarterback through his first 2 games in NFL history. Why is Brand laughing?
It's the Raiders. It's fine.
I know, but I kind of like him. I do. And Amari Cooper, he's been the best of all the rookies. I like him. I don't like Crabtree. He's got weird leg injuries. Latavius Murray had a bad game. He suffered a shoulder injury, which was kind of bad. He came back, but then he got benched. But you know what? They still have faith in Latavius Murray. What I will say is it's probably a situation where you don't have a lot of other great options to play instead of Latavius Murray. against the Broncos, or Amari Cooper. You just don't. Now, the Broncos do have the second fewest points to wide receivers, so I don't love that. I'm sure Chris Harris Jr. will be on Amari Cooper. They get the 19th fewest to running back, so Latavius Murray's more than likely going to have the better of the two games, but I don't know. I think they could pull something out this game.
Unbelievable, Ashley. Awful fantasy analysis. Do not play the Raiders against the Broncos.
I kind of like them. You know what? I feel like this is a Peyton Manning moment of last season where I said bench Peyton Manning and you guys were like laughing at me.
It's true. They'll get points.
They're not going to have great games. They're going to get some points. They're going to get points.
All right. Let's move on to Sunday night game. San Francisco 49ers 1-3, but the New York Giants 2-2.
It's a travesty, actually, that the 49ers won a game.
It's a travesty. We have to watch them on Sunday night.
It's unfortunate. Instead of listening to me and running the ball more, Jim Tomsula decided to give Carlos Hyde only 8 carries last week. Shocking. It really is genuinely shocking. It blows my mind.
Bad coaching.
I don't know what to do because Carlos Hyde's value is now in the toilet. I think you have to hold on to him. I don't think you're going to get enough for him. You got to hope that someone comes to their senses around week 8 and you can get something good for him. You can get some value out of him eventually and maybe have him and he'll be a stud during the playoffs. But right now, my apologies. It is what it is. In fact, Carlos Hyde said it best, quote, "They brought extra defenders in the box. It's hard to run against 8 or 9 guys in the box." And I'm going to tell you something. I think they'd put 11 guys in the box if it wasn't illegal.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to defend Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, they're daring Colin Kaepernick to beat them, and it's not going to happen.
I can't remember which defensive guy basically said to him this weekend, he was like, "You're not Russell Wilson, bro." That's not even, high praise, by the way. I just wanted to put that out there.
It's Clay Matthews.
150 yards.
It wasn't like you're not Tom Brady or you're not Joe Montana if you're, a throwback guy. No, it was you're not even Russell Wilson.
Bro.
And listen, Russell Wilson has a Super Bowl ring. I don't want to make fun of him, but it's not like he's, first ballot Hall of Famer here. So, regardless of matchup, I don't care, and everyone else is out.
Bam. Giants. Eli Manning has had 19 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. And I think he will even get more this week against the 49ers that have been less than impressive this year. So if 19 points is enough for you, which I think he might get 2 more points, so 21 at the lowest.
Ooh.
I think he's a good guy to put in your lineup. So I'm into Eli Manning. Odell Beckham Jr. has had 2 bad games now. The good thing is they're going to reset him, guys. It's going to all get reset. And they're going to use him. They're going to use him. So don't sit him.
Okay.
Must start. And this is my ducky hand telling me what to do. Well, Rashard Jennings came back from the dead last week, which is very exciting. He did get a touchdown, but he only had 9 attempts, which I hate, and 2 targets. It's just not my favorite. Andre Williams had 11 attempts and 1 target. Vereen had 5 attempts, and he was never targeted, which in the air, which I just think is blows my mind seeing how Vereen is supposed to be the PPR junkie. So right now, I just don't know what to tell you about that backfield. The 49ers give up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, so the fantasy value is there. I just don't know where you should be investing it. It's kind of really hard for me, so I see 6 points in all of their future. So plays this week.
That could be generous, too.
Somber.
Ruben Randall found the end zone for the 2nd week in a row. You can go ahead and play him as your wide receiver 3 or flex spot. You should pick up the Giants' defense and play them against the 49ers, you guys. They've given up the most fantasy points to defenses. And they've had double-digit numbers 3 weeks this season. So that's good. 3 weeks out of 4 weeks in double digits for a defense that are the Giants. Bravo. Josh Brown is not my favorite this week. Maybe 7 fantasy points at top, so just don't do it. Monday night game, Pittsburgh Steelers 2-2 at the San Diego Chargers 2-2. The Steelers. Brown will have a rebound week against the very banged-up Chargers secondary. The stats are going to tell you the Chargers are great, but they've lost 2 key players this last week, you guys. So don't worry about it. The Pittsburgh Steelers actually might have a chance with Michael Vick as their quarterback this week. It might happen. So I'm okay with Antonio Brown. I'm not sitting him at all. Don't worry. He will get you the fantasy points back this week. The Chargers love to give up fantasy points to running backs, so Le'Veon Bell is obviously a must-start. as he always is regardless. And since Bell came out, you guys, I've said no Heath Miller, and he's been worthless. So let's get over it, move on, find somebody new. Martavius Bryant is back. We spoke to a Steelers writer on our SiriusXM show, and he was very impressed with Bryant this preseason. I am as well. I think you might be able to start him in a flex this week and maybe as your wide receiver 3 going forward. So we'll see how this works out with the Vic situation. It's very dicey. But the Steelers move on to yet another kicker. By Scobie.
Yeah.
Got Chris Boswell.
Not there.
Still not starting him. And you might even be able to play the Steelers defense this week. Sounds crazy, but you could.
I think the Steelers will be better than people think this week. Because I thought one of the most interesting comments I heard during the game was the fact that you've got a left-handed thrower versus a right-handed thrower, and the spin is very different, and that does have a big impact on receivers. So that was why you saw Antonio Brown drop that touchdown in the end zone, a catch he could make in his sleep normally with Ben Roethlisberger. So I think that extra week of practice is going to help him. I do.
The offense or the defense?
The offense. I don't know if I can agree starting the defense, but maybe.
I don't know. The Chargers give up a lot of points to defenses, and it's, with their defense being banged up, the offense is going to be tired. I don't know. It's not my favorite matchup for them. So let's get into it. The Chargers. Phillip Rivers had a nice game last week with Cleveland with 358 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think you'll have another good week. I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout. I think Le'Veon Bell's going to have some nice runs and get some touchdowns. So I think Phillip's going to have to throw, which means he will have turnovers, but that's okay. That's what Phillip does. We move on from it. He'll get the touchdown and the yards regardless. Antonio Gates is back.
Woo!
Insert him
I
into
love
the
this.
lineup. It's fine. He's available. He's ready to play. Steelers give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. All about it. Yay, yay, yay. And Danny Woodhead had another nice game.
Yep.
The Steelers are great against the run, but Woodhead catches the ball, so he's going to be fine. All the other running backs who are also receivers have great fantasy points against them, so we're good. Not in love with Gordon because of that fact. He just hasn't done much anyways, so he's just not my favorite person. You need to keep him on your bench, possibly trade him if you can. And just wait till he proves himself. So, and then Keenan Allen is a must start. Both Stevie Johnson and Malcolm Floyd were injured last week, so keep an eye on their progress throughout the week. It did seem that Malcolm Floyd's doing really well with his concussion protocol, so he might be back for the game. Stevie Johnson, I'm not sure about. So, again, just keep an eye on it because I love both of them this week if they can play.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really excited about Monday night. I think it's going to be high fantasy. High fantasy lands. I do. It's a little bit of fantasy orgy on a Monday Night Football. It's my thing. But that's it for us, you guys. That's week 5. Good luck again. Get them out of your lineup if they are in right now. The Carolina Panthers, Miami Dolphins, Minnesota Vikings, and the New York Jets. You can always ask us questions on Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook /HerFantasyFootball. If you haven't heard enough for us, hop onto SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio and listen to us Saturday nights from 8 to 10 Eastern. And go to herfantasyfootball.com to subscribe to us so we can send you our weekly announcements about our fun game Diced on FanDuel, where we give you 4 ingredients that you have to follow by in your lineup, and we give you a fun prize if you win. So there's only 40 spots, so you have to do it as soon as possible once we send you that email, okay? Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, no more faking it.